Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Seddon And Lacey's Christmas? No, that was last week. Comic Stash.
It's because you ate so much turkey, you've got confused, Chris.
Yeah, all the Jack Daniels has seeped its way into my brain and left me confused and hungover. We are here as part of the Renaissance Men Cult of Egg, conglomerate of joy. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that YouTubey stuff. And as always, follow the rest of the content on the channel, which we'll go over in more detail later. But this episode is in regards of a recent Marvel TV series where we thought, fuck that, we're going to read the actual source material, all about Hawkeye, which I have the lovely new reissue that came out because of the TV show by Panini.
It
Yes,
was
the
quite
Italian football stickers.
it was quite reasonably priced as well, wasn't it? This new
Yeah,
reprint, yeah.
tenner.
And again, like I hope that this is a trend we see more of because we talked many episodes ago about getting people getting their hands on actual comic books now. We said about like Waterstones being people's main one, but yeah, I love the idea of Panini getting into the reprint game and going, well, this is going to be on telly. Let's actually put it out because I imagine it's the sort of thing that again you might start seeing on the shelves in WH Smith's or something like that as well. So
That's the thing. I got mine from Smiths, and I
yeah,
was looking in the back of it. They did one for One Division, they did one for Loki, they did one for Falcon or Falcon and Winter Soldier, one for Shang-Chi, and I think they did mention there's an Eternals one coming as well. So they're clearly
nice,
doing something. Someone's obviously been listening to us
yeah.
and
Well, it
gone.
is. It's about time someone did, isn't it? Because, like, let's be honest, this world would not be as fucked as it is if people listen to us more often.
I know
But
exactly, but yeah. So obviously they are finally sort of putting two and two together and going, let's do these reissues,
yeah,
reprints, or even sort of greatest stories sort of thing of characters that are now going to be popular because of a TV show or a film that's now out, and makes perfect sense to do
yeah.
such.
And it makes sense to the company because they can make cash money. And for us, the thing that obviously we talk about a lot on here is to try and encourage people to read more comic books, like see the joy and the greatness that there is out there. So if it's a little bit more available to people, then excellent. I am not reading the Panini version. I am I read it on the version that's on my iPad, and that shows me that I really need to clean that screen. I do have a lovely deluxe hardcover version of it. But I've not even taken it out of its seal. It's on a shelf, still sealed up. So, but yeah, I do have. As I had it on the iPad. So when I revisited it, it was back through technology rather than paper copies. So,
So,
so I was going to say,
a potted history of Hawkeye, the comic book,
yeah,
and where he differentiates from the Clint we see in the MCU.
and I
Seddon.
think. And I think it is something, isn't it? Like we've touched on this, certain on some of the Batman stuff and things like that. We don't know who our audience is, but I imagine sometimes people will come along to these things because of the movies, because of the TVs. And I think when we're talking about any comic book series that involves these characters, you kind of need to give a bit of context because sometimes they are very different. And in this case, I think the truth is that they are very different. So, comic book wise, Hawkeye is an archer. He's an archer very much like he is in the movies. That's where your similarities start. His name is Clint Barton, also similar. Outside of that, very different. So he's been around for a very long time. He was originally a villain and joined the Avengers on the behest of Captain America. And over the years, a lot of the early stories were really sort of touching on that. He was, and again, I say a villain, a low level villain, but was touching on kind of a bad boy turned good. And as we go through, he becomes more and more of a character in the Avengers to the point where he actually ends up leading his own Avengers team, the West Coast Avengers, a lovely little run from the heyday of I guess, when I started collecting. But even that was often seen as a second string, and often he's been considered a bit of a joke's probably a bit harsh, but the kind of the poor man's Captain America in the Avengers world, that sort of thing. He like in the movies, he was married, but it was a very different marriage story in the comic books. He married someone who was on the team, a lass called Mockingbird, who was also a super spy. But that marriage, and I'm not going to go into that because this is a potted history, but that marriage ended for several reasons, although also potentially didn't end. But that gets into the world of Skrull invasions and potentially him being married to a Skrull. But again, that's a story for a different day. But he actually gets killed off. There's a big story that comes in. Brian Michael Bendis took over the Avengers, and it was really when the Avengers become very big. So pre the movies, but this was the big push in the comic books because I think they knew that these were the characters that they were going with, and he did this kind of shortish story, I think about 4 issues of the deconstruction of what was the Avengers to turn it into what the Avengers was going to be. And Hawkeye got a bit of an oft considered kind of joke ending. He just got blown. He got exploded in a Skrull invasion, and it was a bit of a comedy kind of moment, but in good comic book fashion. Of course, he's back to life, and there's a few sort of scampering around in the universe where they do a few stories here and there, but there's not much between kind of his resurrection and this series starting. I think this series really is kind of a re-establishment of him in the Marvel universe, but because I would say he'd been a bit neglected for a few years, I think it gave the writers and the artists a bit of a blank slate to go, we can do something with this guy and we can do something a bit different. But before we go into it, the only thing I did want to touch on is, and when I say comics, that's Marvel Universe, main Marvel Universe comics. In the movies and the TV, you see that he is married with children. That very much leans to the portrayal of him in the Ultimate Universe. We'll probably do something on that someday. So there really are kind of some inspirations in the movie stuff from Hawkeye and comics, but not, I guess, our main Hawkeye. And that brings us to this series, which as you say, you've got the Panini one there, and I believe that collects the first 6 issues and also one from Young Avengers, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's issue 1 to 6, and then Young Avengers Presents Hawkeye is the added bonus.
Yeah, and was your, just before we start, just as a matter of order, was your Young Avengers Presents at the end of it? So did you get the 6 issues in the end? Because mine's the other way around. In my one that I downloaded, it does the Young Avengers story first, and then it goes into the Hawkeye one. I would say, to very, very briefly touch on that Young Avengers one, I like the way yours did it better, because I think if I was coming into this new, and obviously you buy it, but say you were flicking through it on the shelves in the store, and maybe I read the first 5 pages of the Young Avengers bit, I probably would have put it down and moved on with my life. But
it's not great. So obviously in the film version, which everyone knows, obviously Clint has the issues with his hearing, which they don't play on in this, but I do know is canon when it does come to the comics later on.
Yes.
But yeah, it is a very different Hawkeye. The Ronin stuff. Obviously, I've seen all the Ronin stuff from the films and bits of that. Not read any of it.
Yeah.
How does that fit in the Grand Pantheon?
So when I said he gets resurrected, or he's not dead.
Yeah.
I'll kind of leave it like that. When he reappears, he does in the Ronin suit, and the Ronin suit, and I really, it's a strange thing when you compare it to the TV show, because as we know with a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and a lot of the TV stuff, they grab from multiple different areas and kind of condense it down into one story or one particular area of story. And Ronin has multiple different people are under that Ronin mask, and it isn't necessarily done the way you saw it in the movies. So it isn't Hawkeye loses his shit because everyone got clicked away for 5 years, and then he goes on a kind of kill crazy rampage. It's a bit more superhero-y, and multiple people are Ronin. So the Ronin element of the TV show really doesn't impact this, certainly these 6 issues at all, does it? You know, it's a non element in here. And to be honest, from the comic book wise, that whole I went a bit psycho and killed people for a while, it doesn't really come up in the comic books at all at any point.
Fair enough. It's just one of those, like, obviously I know the Ronin backstory of obviously why he does it in the films, and I know that it is a thing in the comics, but I didn't realize that it was
it's
not
often,
so much it's just Clint, but it was other people that were
I mean, it's been used.
Guys.
I mean, like Daredevil's been Ronin, Echo has been Ronin, and more often than not, it has been to conceal the identity of someone for a reason. I think Iron Fist has been Ronin. Actually, no, I think Iron Fist was Daredevil while Daredevil was Ronin. Anyway, all of that kind of aside, I mean, it's less. It hasn't got that element to it. It wasn't a kind of key moment in time where someone, and obviously in this case where Clint kind of took up that guise to become vengeful or anything like that. To be honest, it was probably Brian Michael Bendis thinking he will look cooler in a Ronin suit than he would in his Hawkeye suit.
Which, if you look at early Hawkeye, really bad.
Don't rail on that suit. Fucking love that suit, man.
With the giant H on his head.
Yep, and the kind of sticky up hawk bits. Yeah, love it. It's and God, I don't want to go down the road of the TV show too quickly, but it's one of the things I hated the most in the TV show, where she draws that costume and they kind of mock it. And I'm like, don't you fucking mock that? That's history, that. It was of a time, don't get me wrong. I don't expect people to do it now, but it's an iconic costume for an iconic superhero. And it's purple. I love purple.
See, the purple bit's fine, but it's just the giant headpiece. Just not so much. It's too much like Hawkman.
Again, he's trying to look hawky. He's Hawkeye. Or I imagine that's what they thought when they character designed it. But as you say, I mean, going into this, I guess that's a good point to kind of pick up on, is that this story isn't your usual superhero story, is it?
No.
And I think in a lot of the stuff we will touch on when we do the show, or certainly the stuff I think we'll touch on because one of us has a love for it, often will be the stuff that goes slightly off the beaten track. So it might have some superhero tropes. It might have people who are in a superhero universe. It might have superheroes and villains in it. But it's not you wouldn't have seen this story 20 years beforehand, you know, like, because people just weren't writing comics in this way and weren't writing comics like this. And if anything, like, for the bulk part, and I can't think of any point in the 6 issues we get where he wears a costume in the slightest, does he?
No.
Like, you know, that this isn't. And I think that's one of the big points of this series is it's a bit of a day in the life, isn't it? But multiple days in the life. So almost this is what Hawkeye does when he's not hanging out with the Avengers.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really interesting look at that, because that could also be done quite schlocky, kind of quite reality TV, which wouldn't have worked for me. But I think you find out a lot about Clint as a man as he is in the comics at the time, and his insecurities, but also his heroism, and his frailties as a human. You know, always go back to stuff we've done before. You look at the Nightfall story in Batman, where you see Batman, who is a human, a highly trained human, no powers, going through one of the most grueling ordeals and winning out. This series starts with Hawkeye falling out a window and then spending months in hospital in casts because he's absolutely ruined his body. And I think it was a really good grounding spot. And that first scene, I think that's why it grabbed me. I read it at the time when it came out, and it really, really grabbed me because I went, I haven't seen people portray one of our bigger heroes, and he is a bigger hero in the context of the Avengers in this way with these Frouties.
Yeah, it's like it starts as I said. He falls out the window and is broken.
Yeah.
In hospital, you see him then getting wheeled out, and has got that sort of cocky, arrogant. No, I'm fine, because that's what he thinks he should be, but really isn't fine.
Yeah.
It's a great introduction to what this Clint is.
And you said about cockiness and arrogance. So hero Clint had often been portrayed as cocky and arrogant, but often unnecessarily cocky and arrogant. So cocky and arrogant in situations he really shouldn't be because he was taking a bit of a whooping or a bit of a hiding. And I guess it was always portrayed as a bit of a defense mechanism for him. So when he's standing next to Thor, he was the I'll make a quip, I'll mock you because I am feeling a bit inadequate, but probably not so well presented as it is in this. This is him when he's not standing next to Thor, still portraying himself as cocky and arrogant, but clearly feeling inadequate about large parts of his life.
And then you get the bit where obviously he's walking home, and at this point it was when I really noticed the art style that they've used for this one. Especially the sort of episodes, sort of issues 1 to 5 have a very similar sort of art style, which the palette they use is so good because it is maybe 4, 5 colors. And it's a very limited color palette, and
colors you don't normally see in superhero comics. We're used to kind of the primary colors and the whiz bang colors, aren't we? But we're leaning really heavily into black, whites, purples, greys, aren't we?
And browns and it's the thing. It just looks cool because it looks. I know it's obviously Marvel and they're the big boys, but it looks like an indie comic. It looks like something that isn't coming out of the big studios and is.
I'm really glad you said it because I'd written that down. I'd said it looks like an indie comic, and again, I tried to put myself back in the mind of me at the time when I probably started to read indie comics at this point, but was still tiptoeing into it. And I think something like this thrust me even further down there because sometimes you need. I mean, I'm often critical of the Disneys and all this sort of stuff, but I think often you need that palatable way to introduce you to there being another world, and the art is. We use the term amazing a lot because we tend to lean into stuff that has good art as well, but this was amazing and stunning, but not in that it's not a poster, it's not the sort of thing where you go, or I say it's not a poster, it's not a traditional poster. Jim Lee as an artist, he draws his heroes as heroes, like his Superman, and you put that on the wall and you go, Jesus, you wouldn't mess with Superman. Whereas this is, it's us, isn't it? Like there's a lot of it will be him walking around the streets, and but rather than kind of walking around the streets in a costume, very kind of upright, muscles and all this sort of thing, like he will actually be hunched over, or like you'll see that he's bloody knackered and he's had a long day and all he wants to do is get home. But you can see that in the way they draw his face, and obviously the way they draw a lot of the body language that comes across. And as you say, the palette that they use, I think it sets a tone. And I'm loath to use the term darker tones. I think if you say the term darker tone, people go, "Oh, so anti-hero," like that sort of thing. And you go, "No, just a little bit murkier, like a little bit more like real life." I think is the truth.
Yeah, I hate to use the word because it's not, but it's a more dull color scheme. Because it's just a more dull, mundane, normal. Instead of, as you said, like when you look at Superman, it's blue, it's red, it's bright. Captain America, blue, red, white, bright colors. Wolverine, yellow, blue, bright color. They're very, very bold, bright colors. Whereas this, as I say, it's purples, it's browns, it's greys. it's lived in. It's a very
And
lived in look.
just to set your mind at rest, Chris, while we're doing this bit of talk, I will be putting some pictures over the top of this because it's something that I think would be nice for people to see. And I go, well, shit, if we're going to bang on about it, we will. But
Yeah.
one of the things you said there about dull, but not in a it is dull way. One of the things that really struck out for me, and as I say, David Arger, who pencils the most predominantly this. I think he's great, but of course the colorists do such a grand job on this. And I'd seen Arja do another series with Matt Fraction, and we will do this at some point as well. Because if you've liked this, we're coming back for these two doing another series, which was the Immortal Iron Fist. And there's some similarities there in that they pick a particular palette, and because Iron Fist is green and yellow, and there's a lot of green, yellows, golds, things like that, but where it kind of knocked my socks off a bit, in the same way as Iron Fist did. Iron Fist is the more polished side for a lot of it, and it fits the martial arts, I guess, movie style that you expect. Whereas with that dullness here, like you look at some of the panels, and you know this is deliberate. This isn't laziness. Like sometimes, like I'm used to in superheroes, those crisp pencils, every line is finished. It just doesn't in some of this, does it? And some of the backgrounds, it's just kind of half drawn, but not half drawn as in you go, oh.
They half-arsed it.
Yeah, you could have finished that fucking wall. Like it is that makes the scene. It really pulls you in, and yeah, just a stunning art style. Whilst you know that's Clint Barton, you know that's Hawkeye. It's not like they totally redesigned his look so he wasn't familiar. It is like him in civvies after a really hard day for most of it, isn't it?
Yeah. Obviously, we get the first look at the tracksuit mafia, who are trying to buy out and evict people out of the house that he lives in. Which, especially because he makes a big point of that he's fucking minted.
Yeah.
Because he's got all that sweet Avenger cash. He's living in a fucking shitty little shithole of an apartment.
Well, and we talk about like character moments and good storytelling, bad storytelling. I know people don't like that term because of the subjectivity of it, but it is bits like that, as you say. Like he, in the real world, if this was the real world, or in the movie world, he is he's an Avenger. Like he should be living in the Promised Land. He should be living in Stark Tower, but because of the guy he is, as you say, he wants to live in kind of a low-end New York apartment block with a random cast of people who are probably just about managing to pay their rent, even pre them having a shitty landlord, because they are just people going out and doing their regular days. And as I say, character stuff. Like, if I'm learning who Hawkeye is from this story, within that first couple of issues that you see that, you go, yeah, he is an Avenger, but he feels like he's not an Avenger. When he's not around them, he's not hanging out with them. He's trying to hang around with normal people because inside that's what he feels he is. He feels he is just a regular Joe, and just really smart decision making on that. And I can't pass on too quickly from the Tracksuit Mafia. So you read comic books, and if you're reading superhero stuff, we talked a few episodes ago about like the best villains, and we talked from even like some of the low end ones, but this is the lowest of the low end, isn't it? I mean, these are the goons that we so often talk about, but they are just goons in tracksuits. They're brilliant. They are, and they're even kind of very. I think in a less talented writer's hands, you would criticise them because you would go, they're just stereotypical Eastern European gangsters.
Yeah.
But I think he does it in such a way as they know they're stereotypical Eastern European gangsters. They're actually playing up to it because they want to impress each other by being more Eastern European gangster than the next one. And,
it's very much like, look at my gold chain. I've got a bigger gold chain.
Yeah. And I imagine it's what some people do. They go like, these are the things that will impress my friends, so I'm going to be more impressive than them. And you must have noticed this from a wrestling world of the overuse of bro, and you must have been thinking, did Vince Russo come along and write this? But in any other comic book, you go, well, he's just going to tonk these twats really quickly, isn't he? But no, they make them really compelling.
See, it gave me massive flashbacks to GTA 4
Yes, yeah,
and Nico and
yes.
what's his face, his bro or his cousin,
Oh
Ronan.
God, what is his? Yes, yeah,
Roman. Yeah,
yeah. It is
it
Roman,
was
yeah.
just. I was getting those vibes off them, and I was just like, I'm in for this. You know, it's that.
Yeah.
You know, we've come over from, you know, Poland or Russia
Yeah.
or that part of Eastern Europe. We come to the big times, go to America. We're gonna be we are bros.
Yeah.
We're great, and
Cool.
it's just so.
Well, you can paint some like of your own stories on it because like it wouldn't surprise me if you could climb into that comic book page and you sat down with those guys off panel that you'd find out that like a couple of them aren't even Eastern European. They just wanted to belong to something, so they're now putting on like kind of really fake Eastern European sort of trappings to get themselves in the group. But yeah, like a great,
Bro,
great
look, I come, look, I have got
yeah.
chain. Very good. Yes.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of that, and but as I say, like it's a dangerous like footing to go on, and this was oh God, in fact I think I've got it here. What year it was released? Oh bloody haven't. I'll look it up in a minute, but 2012. So you know, we are looking at close to 10 years ago, but not sort of 10 years ago, and people, you know, we're not going back to the 1970s where it's just like, oh yeah, let's mock the foreigners. Like I come back to this is written really smartly, and okay, it's pointing at some of the trappings and the stereotypes there, but it's pointing at it in the right way. It's saying some people really play up to these stereotypes because they think that's the way that they need to portray themselves to fit in their circle or in their group. I keep coming back to you start off with the first issue of most superhero comics. Most writers are probably going to go, well, shit, you know, we want the last panel page to be the reveal that like Doctor Doom is here or something like that. But you know, there isn't anything like that. These are the bad guys, and you know, he's got to tackle them.
And then obviously the back end of the first issue, a random dog is hit by a car. Clint takes it to the vets and is like, "It's not my dog."
Yeah.
But then, when the vet's sort of saying how much it's going to be for the surgery and everything else, because it's not my dog. My dog. Yeah, it's my dog.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a dog lover. I'm not a dog owner. I'm a dog lover. But I fucking love Lucky. As we find out, he's Lucky the pizza dog as he becomes. And there's just a scene in it, and I go back to the art where he walks in from the rain with the dog in his arms, and from a wrestling term, it kind of feels a little bit like cheap heat. But I actually, that is a comic book panel that punches me in the gut every time I see it, and I'm just like, save Lucky, do everything, sacrifice everyone on the planet to save Lucky. And at that point, you've got no idea. He's just a random dog, isn't he? Like, and he's a random dog that's lost an eye, and I don't know. Like they do such a fantastic job with building sympathy for Lucky, and as you say there, like you get that character moment of, I am the cool dude. I am aloof. Yes, I'm helping this person, but I've got no. In this case, a dog. I've got no connection. I need to be aloof. I need to be standoffish. And no, totally 100% in. That is my dog. I love that dog. And you know, we see that play out in the early parts of this story where you know we say he's living in a kind of an apartment building that isn't the greatest in the world, and you see like random people there, and you know it is a landlord trying to extort as much money as they can out of the people who live there, but ultimately to get rid of them so that they can then sell on that business to sell on that building to make more money. And Hawkeye, in the same way as he does with Lucky, is kind of, he does the hero thing, doesn't he? He kind of tries to take out the bad guys, but then realizes there's a smarter way to probably solve this issue, which is, as we said earlier, go and get some of that fat cash that he's got and buy out the building. Of course, you then get like a kind of rooftop barbecue moment, don't you? Where he, you see the same thing you saw in that Lucky scene, where he kind of he's aloof, he's standoffish, but no, he gives a shit about these people, and all he wants to do is protect. And there you go, Bosch. There's a hero. For all that stuff we said in a few episodes ago about what makes a hero, this gets it so right, because you see this flawed human being do heroic things, but not just in the Biff the bad guy on the nose kind of way, but actually caring, and I guess making some sacrifices so that he can help out. I say the less fortunate, but maybe the a little bit A-teamy vibes as well. I found for that first issue, it was almost like the A-team have rolled into town and they've helped the local businesswoman who is being put under pressure by the local thugs, and that kind of element to it.
Yeah, it is very much that sort of. You say I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, it's very much A-team, and coming in, fuck shit up, clear out the arseholes.
Yeah.
There you go. Get on with your life. So the second issue, I can't remember the individual bits of this one, because the 1 and 2 sort of roll into each other, because obviously the issue 3 is a set piece issue, so it's sort of easy to remember which one that is. But it's in the second one we first meet Kate, in it.
That's the kind Kate of pulling Kate into this world. So much like the TV show, very different, obviously, with what we have, and we'll pick up on some of that later. But the first issue is Clint, isn't it? It's kind of setting up Clint's world, and in the second issue, we see that actually this isn't going to be just Clint and Clint's world. Kate Bishop is coming along for the ride, and some very interesting motivations as to why Kate Bishop is coming along for the ride. But again, such a great way of portraying a character and giving them multi-layers. Like Clint pretty much says, I'm not very good at being a human being. I tend to mess things up. I tend to make bad mistakes. I tend to get in the way of myself, and I'm trying to do something here. I'm trying to establish something. I'm trying to protect these people. So I need someone to help me keep on a straight and narrow. And he turns to Kate Bishop. Now, in the comic books, she had been introduced a while before this, and is a member of a superhero team called the Young Avengers. But the only real connectivity she had with Hawkeye is she'd taken the Hawkeye name, and at a certain point had stolen Hawkeye's some of Hawkeye's stuff, some of his arrows, and then later was given more of that stuff by Captain America when the Young Avengers started to prove themselves. But she'd had no major connectivity with Hawkeye. It's not like they'd been hanging around for years, or that she was like a trainee of his, or anything like that.
This is the one bit where we'll sort of mention the TV show. Is obviously in the TV show version, it's very much she's the wannabe young apprentice.
Yeah.
Whereas when we first see her in this, I wouldn't say equal, but is near the same sort of level of Hawkeye, and there's that level of respect there already. She knows what she's doing.
She's not. She doesn't. Certainly in this, I don't think she doesn't kind of have that fangirl element. She's not like, oh, here's Hawkeye, here's the hero, swoon. She's I'd say a lot more aloof and confident in herself. She is I can fire arrows too, and probably better than you as well at certain points. And I wouldn't even say competitive. I'd just say she's her own person, I think, more so in this, rather than an extension of the Hawkeye character, should we say.
Yeah. And the thing is, with her, I find her much more likable in the comic book than I did at any point during the TV show.
And interestingly enough, like in the comic book, when they certainly I'd say around this stage, like she's supposed to be not likable, but she's likable because of that. Like she is, I guess, got some entitlement to her. She had led a a rich upbringing, and there is. I'll go back to aloof again. She is very much portrayed as an aloof character a lot of the time, but a heroic one. So, but yeah, I'm with you. The Kate from this time in the comics resonates a lot better with me than the Kate that I've got from the TV show.
Yeah. Obviously, we get more of the shit with the tracksuit boys.
They
Lobbing.
ain't going. They ain't going anywhere, are they? Like
No.
they weren't a one and done. These boys are around. Like
There's the bit where they're lobbing out stuff out of people's windows, and he then goes to the poker game and
yes,
doesn't know anything about playing cards
Yep,
or
brilliant, isn't it?
gambling in any way, shape, or form
And
in
again,
a Chinese mock casino.
It's kind of and probably has been done a lot before and a lot after. But again, I think in the format that it is, it's really clever, subversive storytelling, isn't it? Because normally the hero turns up to a poker game and you find out very quickly that they're a master of poker, and you know you get that bit. But yeah, he just turns up and he just knows nothing, doesn't he? He's just kind of like, oh.
And again, gamble, I don't know, and then just starts strapping.
That layers of Clint again, isn't it? Like we are being introduced to the Clint that Matt Fraction wants to tell us about, and that Clint is well-meaning and very, very, very good at certain things like firing arrows, but also very, very inept at large parts of life, which I guess makes him a really good everyman in this for me, because we've all got some of that, haven't we? There's stuff that we're good at, and there's stuff that we're terrible at. You know, like before spoilers before the show, me and Chris were talking about playing Football Manager, like we tend to, and I think of myself as relatively handy at Football Manager. You asked me to put a shelf up in the background, no chance. You know, like, and I think it speaks to like us as humans that we're not always naturally great at everything, and that grounding of him, I think, makes him very compelling in this comic book, because it runs a very fine line between that guy that we see in other things, that guy who is just a bit of a fucking idiot sometimes, but everything kind of goes his way. And I think they layer in enough of, actually, he's not only a bit of a fucking idiot sometimes, and sometimes does everything go his way, but also he's a bit shit at life. And I think that, again, that extra layer makes him very, very. I wouldn't revere it as much as I do in spoiler. I really do love this. I think if it had just been, he tripped over and fired a bow off by accident, I think there's just that extra bit where you go, no, we show that sometimes he puts himself in situations and thinks, I'll wing it, and he fucking doesn't. He's got no clue how to deal with it and ends up having to scrap his way out.
Yeah. So we will go into which easily the best action episode of all of it. Issue 3, where we get the car chase, but how it starts.
Well, I have to say, for those who have watched the TV show, we are talking about that car chase. The one, I think that was episode 2. No, was it 3?
Episode 3.
Episode 3 of the TV series. Other than what Chris is about to go on to here, the car chase in the TV show is pretty much a kind of a direct lift conceptually, isn't it, from what they do in the comic book? But yeah, wax lyrical on it, because I know you love this as much as I did.
So it's all about the beginning bit, where how we find Clint gets into the red Mustang.
Yes.
So he is out doing a shop run because he needs some bandages and some sellotape.
Yep.
Ends up hooking up with a girl who's trying to flog the car.
Yeah.
Turns out she'd robbed the car from the tracksuit mafia. They're in minis, numbered.
Beautiful, isn't it? It's like they're in Herbie's, aren't they? Like, but in a mini version. It's an Italian Job meets Herbie Goes Bananas, with Eastern European gangsters driving them.
And then in a bit of it where they're running out away from them, we then get a car crash where Kate hits the Mustang in her Beetle.
Yep.
And then she's the one that's driving as Clint is firing off all the trick arrows. he has all of the fun ones, the acid, garrote wires,
Yes, yeah.
explosive arrows, all of the weird and wonderful fun things that they have. No fucking Pym arrows though,
No
thank
Pym
fuck
arrow,
for
stick
that.
your Pym arrow up your ass.
But yeah, this for a action scene, which is basically a car chase, these can be really hard to do in
Yeah,
comic books. I've
yeah,
seen a few that I've looked at and gone, you you're expecting a lot to jump from point A to point B to point C to
yeah.
point, whereas this has a really good flow to it that makes sense of the action as it's going on.
Well, and bearing in mind what we said earlier about the art style, like in the hands of your Todd McFarlane's, your Jim Lees, your Rob Liefelds, they were known for their movie-esque, almost like movie posters with their action scenes. But we've described what the art is like in this, and the artist is like this, and they do this in that art style, don't they? It's not like
Yeah,
suddenly he changes up and goes, right, yeah, like
no,
traditional superhero fare here. It's a real shame for me because I would say to anyone who watched the TV show and liked that car chase, please, please, please read it in the comic. However, I really wish people had read it in the comic first because I think sometimes when you've seen that with the moving pictures, it might lessen some of the impact of it in the comic book. But yeah, I'm with you. What a great designed action sequence shown on the sequential art page. And like you said earlier about how Clint gets into this car chase, and it's obviously something you couldn't do in the TV show because he's a happily married man. But one of
yeah,
the plot points about Clint through the years is Clint has, as I say, he had a wife at a certain point, but he's dated a lot of people in the comic book world. I mean, often he was someone who did sort of kind of shift around dating, so he's got this history there, and they don't shy away from it. Like he actually kind of embraces the thing of going, I'm quite popular with women, but I'm actually terrible with them. Like
yeah,
we do tend to sleep together, and then it tends to end really badly because they realise that I'm a bit of an asshole, and then they don't want anything to do with me anymore. And of course, this is your action scene version of going, yeah, it didn't work out for this lass either, did it? Now,
yeah,
admittedly, you can argue that her stealing a car is what made it not work out for her, but I think it was that again the layering on of who this Hawkeye is. Anyone else goes out to get bandages and sellotape, they go to the store, they get it, they come back home, they bandage whatever they need to, they sellotape it. This guy, he goes out, has that kind of hero guy moment that I think would be again very different in a lesser writer's hands, where he goes and meets this like really hot woman with a lovely car and he sleeps with her and isn't everything brilliant. But no, for Clint it isn't brilliant because that bit did happen, but then he has to go through a chase scene with a load of Eastern European gangsters in minis trying to kill him, like
who come in whilst he's just
yes,
finished coitus,
yeah,
as trying to start shooting at him as he
yeah,
dives out of bed butt naked, and we get a beautiful moment where they use the old Hawkeye face
yes,
to
yeah,
keep his modesty, shall we say.
yeah. And again, smart little things like that, like we always talk about Easter eggs and things like that. But yeah, what a brilliant way of doing that. He just popped that in. But yeah, and I mean to pop back to we said about the framing of how this gets into it. I mean, it also helps to kind of reinforce this connection between him and Kate, because when he gets Kate in, and there's a question mark around why does he want Kate to be kind of his companion on this part of his journey. And he pretty much says, because you're too young, so I won't try and sleep with you.
Yeah,
And like uber honest, because again he recognizes his flaws, and he recognizes that if she was let's say for the purpose of the people who've only watched movies and TV, if he got Black Widow to move in, he would probably try and sleep with her. And if he was successful, it would probably mess things up. And if it was unsuccessful, it would probably mess things up. So, gives us those character moments there again.
yeah,
And Kate's like a parent to him already, isn't
yeah,
she? She is
yeah,
having to shepherd this feckless, albeit talented idiot through life. And again, I think that's why she becomes very compelling in this, is that you feel for her because you go, on paper this should be cool. You're living with a superhero, but I can see that this is a right pain in the ass for you because you're having to clear up. It's again like having a kid, isn't it? A young
Yeah.
kid, a charming young kid is what Clint is to her.
Yeah, and it's to do with this. It's very much at this point you really do start seeing that sort of, as you said, parenting of Clint by Kate.
Yeah.
The end of this one, again, really good art is the drawing of the fucked car at the end.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it just goes, oh look, that was a really nice Mustang. Now it's fucked, and her then trying to still get Clint to buy it off her as she's off to the airport to get away from the tracksuit mafia. This would have been one of those. If I'd have seen this as a single issue, and if I was buying them in the day, I would have probably picked it up without having read the rest of the run at that point and been all in on it.
Yeah, and you know, like I keep saying about like the context of the time, and it would have been a tough market. I mean, I'm not going to say this sold like millions, but it was popular and it really found its audience. But it was at a time when comic books weren't selling particularly great, and I think as much as it's found its audience and was reasonably successful in the world that it was still kind of probably just selling enough to break even for them because you know, like it's a company that's there to sell you the hero dream, and you put something out there with a quirky art style. Before we go on to what happens next in the story, I talk about quirky art styles. The covers for this are amazing, and if anyone, and again, I'll splicey the covers in, but for anyone who saw any of the promotional material for the TV show and thought that looks really cool, they're pretty much based off the covers of these of this series, and I think the covers is probably what attracted me to them in the store. But I think maybe opening it up, people might have been taken aback by the art styling and maybe not necessarily drawn in. But a great. I'm with you. I think this is something that anyone, you know, we talked. I think it was what's that Killing Joke one, that I give this to a non-comic book reader and say read this, and I think they would get something out of it, and it would pull them into reading comic books.
Yeah, and it's one of those because it's a car chase. Everyone's seen a car chase. Whether you watch, if all you ever watch is fucking Emmerdale and soaps, you will have seen a car chase, even in one of those.
Still remember when I was going to say I still remember I was going to try and do like an EastEnders poll. I'm pretty sure Tiffany Mitchell got run over in that, but don't fact check me because I'm not that sure.
But there is always, you know, everyone knows a car chase. So it's something that is relatable, but it's a way of seeing it in a different medium. And I think that this is, as I said, I've seen a few where they've done car chases and stuff, and they're not always easy and to go with. But this also works.
But also, like things like they're doing it in the minis. Like it really, as I say, it's a nod to the Italian Job.
Yeah.
But also like kind of like, you know, like with the Beetle coming in, as I say, it's got that Herbie vibes to it. They knew what they were doing, but not in a cheap, shitty way. It was kind of like, you've seen a car chase, you're familiar with these sort of things, so let's pull these things into, I guess, grab your attention initially, and then away you go, we're going to present it our way. And they're cracking, absolutely cracking.
So we then get the 2-bit issue 4 and 5, which is the only one that is very obvious with the fact that it's a story that continues massively over two issues, where obviously the others are very much standalone and could be consumed on their own, but this is definitely the one that's the story arc, which is the one about the tape, where there is a tape that's gone out of a murder of a diplomat on an Avengers mission, and Hawkeye is off to get it back. And this is the one where we see a cast of weird and wonderful villains that are the tracksuit mafia.
You see a lot more of the Marvel universe, but you see him in a different way, don't you? You see him in ways that maybe you're not so familiar with. I mean, they have like things like the auction and the party, but rather than it, I mean, they're all like, a lot of them will be dressed up in suits and stuff like that, but it felt a little bit more like the conversations they would have off in between panels
Yeah,
of a normal comic book. And yeah, you get the Kingpin, don't you? You get Madame Mask. I'm trying to think who else in there, but you get to see. Um, I don't know. Again, the Marvel universe through the lens of this series.
yeah, and again, it's the art style on this helps because there's bits where they're doing a dive into the pool,
Yes, yeah,
and Hawkeye's there trying to make sure that Kate doesn't hurt herself in doing that, and then sort of hurts himself in it. But the way they do it with just blacking out them as like as a reflection or as a
yeah.
shadow falling just looks so good, and it is the first time we do get a bit more color in
Well,
it.
when you mention that particular pool scene, it actually reminds me of something that I've written a note to remind myself is like they top and tail that issue with this, don't they? Like, and it does it a bit in this, in certainly the bits you've read. It is, you'll almost jump into a scene at the beginning, and it will have that narration by Clint, won't it? It'll be like, oh,
Yeah,
and this is when things went really bad,
yeah,
and then it will tell us the story, and then you get up to that bit. And as I say, this is not that this is particularly the newest and freshest thing, and no one ever done it before, but it wasn't a style that we were seeing in superhero comics at the time, and that was particularly fresh of it. And yeah, looking like it looks, but yeah, I really liked that element of going, I'm jumping in towards the end of this to kind of go, this is where it got to, and now feed me the ingredients that got
that
to this
got us
part
there.
of the meal. Yeah,
And it's something that TV's done a
yeah,
lot. You get a lot of TV shows where you go, oh look, your hero is in peril, or the
yeah,
the main character of the TV show is in some fucked up situation. We've all had a day,
yeah,
and then it then sort of tells you how they've got to that, and that's normally
yeah,
the halfway point, and then it follows on from there on out. And yeah, this I really like, and as I said, obviously we've got the circus part where we see a different color palette definitely comes in at
yes,
that
yeah.
point to give it the difference in there and make it look
Well,
like
again,
something that's a big event, because
well,
obviously the whole point is we are getting characters that we haven't had for the
and,
rest of the
and it's
story.
great, isn't it? Because you're not in his block anymore, are you? You're
Yeah,
not hanging around that apartment building. So almost to signify that you're in a different part of his life, as you say, they introduce a different, and again, very similar in the way they do the color palette, isn't it? Like again, they probably moved from those sort of 4 to 5 colors they were using to 4 to 5 other colors that they were using, and then every now and again they'd introduce some of the Hawkeye colors in, so you could see this is Hawkeye coming into this other part of the world.
yeah.
I mean, if anyone hasn't picked up so far that we like the art on this, then Jesus, like, come on, we like the art on this. This is amazing stuff.
But yeah, so that is a really cool sort of double feature issue on that sort of how he gets to fighting Madame Mask, Kate pretending to be Madame Mask,
Yeah,
and the interrogation and them finding a way out of it all. And then we get a complete
I was going to say very quickly on that. I
yeah
mean, potentially, like this is tiptoeing closer to superhero fare, isn't it? As we said, it's got the bigger cast, and there are more kind of recognizable villains, but it feels more. Oh God, I don't want to use the term that I'm going to use, but it feels more like Hawkeye stepping into a James Bond world rather than maybe necessarily, but
yeah
in Hawkeye's way, like yeah, he doesn't all of a sudden issue learn how to gamble. He's still Hawkeye, kind of going into this world, and like that whole premise of the tape. What if there was a tape of a superhero killing someone, and the villains want to buy it because it's extremely powerful for them. They want this stuff. This is their dream come true, isn't it? To show that the
yeah
good guys are the bad guys, and yeah, a really kind of refreshing story, a refreshing idea for the 2 issue arc.
See, just sort of looking over at the Bond DVDs I've got on the corner. Very Casino Royale.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we go off to the island to go and play to bid for the tape and stuff. Yeah, I really really like this. And then we got, I think my favourite visual issue was 6 because of the massive contrast and it looking a lot more like sort of animation style drawn. It looked more sort of like the cartoony, as in the Saturday morning cartoons sort of style. Because it was brighter colours, it was much more blacker outlines, and because of what the context of the story, because it's basically Clint's at home, he's trying to set up a stereo system, can't do it.
It's just brilliant. Sorry, I'm giggling already. It's just a fantastic, isn't it? Like, who hasn't done that? Where you've gone, this should be fucking easy, and just I'm so inept, I can't do this basic human function.
Gets Tony Stark round to try and help him, kicks off at Tony. We then get a couple of pages of. I think they're the Avengers at that point, but it's Hawkeye, Spider-Man.
Yeah. So at that
Iron
point
Man.
in the world, they are the new Avengers, and yes,
Yeah.
that is their cast of characters at that point.
Having a little battle and then telling Clint to go and enjoy his holidays and have some time off.
Yeah.
Which then we then go back to him being there to try and sort out all this TV equipment and these new gadgets that he's bought, and well and truly being the technophobe old man just staring at the wires.
Yeah.
Well,
in context-wise, that bit of that kind of "go home, Clint. We don't need you," basically. Like,
yeah.
I mean, from an Easter eggy or from a comic book world, I mean, that's what happened. As I said, Brian Michael Bendis come in, and certainly the feeling is that he didn't really. Like, part of the story that he did is he culled a load of the people who had traditionally been Avengers or were in the Avengers at that time, to then move on to what he wanted, which was a new Avengers, which was bringing in Spider-Man, Wolverine, Luke Cage, characters that he liked. And of course, what Fraction does here is he distills that down to like a couple of panels, which is pretty much, oh fucking hell, he's turned up again. Why don't you take a few nights off, just get out of the way? Which is what they try to do with him in the wider meta universe, I guess.
Yeah. Obviously, it then becomes Christmas because it's around the Christmas period, so you get a lot more sort of a wintry vibe going on. There's obviously another party on the roof as he's trying to fix everything. They get well, aren't you an Avenger? Can't you get someone to fix this for you? Trick us up a party and all the rest of it. And then he has a really nice moment where the neighbours' kids come in to watch a TV show. And he just sits there on the couch with the two kids so they can watch their favourite TV show because their TV don't work.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the main satellite dish is fucked because Hawkeye put an arrow in it.
Yep. And he's making the best of the life he's got because he's fucked some stuff up. But yeah, you're right. You get those beautiful moments where you just go, yeah, this guy really is talk about street level heroes like Daredevil, but he's a hero at heart. But you kind of need to forgive some of the shit you might need to go through to get there. Again, same artist, but I'm with you. Like on this issue, I think because he is really having to, or they're choosing to play in the world of superheroes. They do it. Some of the panels. There's a couple where it's just their heads in boxes.
Yeah.
But that was what you used to get in the top left-hand corner of the comic books. Like it'd be like Amazing Spider-Man. You just get this little picture and just smart little bits like that. And there's a few panels where they're having a fight, and it looks like Final Fight or something like that. So you've got your heroes over this side of the screen, and your villains kind of almost walking across this side, and just great little touches like that really draw you into it.
Yeah, it's one of those of very last issue of a run. Is there a great story progression? Was it needed? Probably not. But does it make you love Clint more?
Yeah.
Fuck yes.
Yeah. And you know, it makes you want to come back and read more Clint, and not
Yeah.
because there was a cliffhanger, but because you go, I want to learn more about this guy, or I want to see what happens to him, because I'm now interested in him as a person and the world that he plays in, and the people around him. You know, like
Yeah.
I want to see Lucky again. I want to see Kate again. I want to see the tracksuit mafia again. Yeah,
The people in the block, and are they
yeah,
all still going to be living there? And it was very, very clever
yeah.
in the way that it did that in that last issue.
So
So
I was going to say, in good news, Chris,
yes,
there's more.
yeah,
So it carries on. Fraction and predominantly David Archer, who's the artist, they stay on there for longer. So there is more. So we will get to more. There is more after that as well. So they do move on. They go on to do. I'm going to say they go on to do other things. We'll get back to David Archer and what he goes on to do or not do. But there is a follow up to this. There is another Hawkeye, which I haven't read yet. I've read all of this run, but
yeah.
there's one by one of my favourite writers, which I have recently purchased. I just missed it at the time. I don't really know why. So yeah, I think we'll come back and do volume 2, because I feel like, from what you've been saying, that you liked it.
I did. Got it. So got it on an afternoon when I was in work because I was in the city. Got home. The other half was playing Assassin's Creed. Had the TV and the PlayStation, so I just sat, banged through it in an hour and a half.
And the thing is, I mean, it is. We talk about sort of kind of monstering through things. There are. They're not. It's not overly wordy, is it?
No.
You're not getting page after page of long sort of speeches. Now there are certain pages that will be crammed full of words, but when it's necessary. But a lot of the time, it lets the art tell the story, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna say this, but I'm not sure. So tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm trying to remember. Because as I say, unfortunately, I have read on a little bit more from this and had read it previously. You even get things like where you see the dogs almost thought bubbles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff like that. Just again, little sort of tweaks and nice little art moments for you. But like Clint will be banging on about something, and you'll just above the dog's head, it will be like the sign for a toilet because he needs a wee. There'll be a sign for a sausage because he wants to eat, and that sort of thing. And quirky kind of little bits like that. But yeah, it does go on, and I will say that for me, it doesn't get weaker. In fact, it gets stronger. Like it is a fantastic run, and I said earlier, it's a revered run, not just by me. It is loved by comic book fans. The artist David Archer, he won Eisner Awards for this, and Eisners are the kind of the equivalency of Oscars. But he won for I think for the straight up art, but also he won for cover artist. Now, what's probably quite interesting and may intrigue you for us to have a look at this somewhere down the line. But the year that he won the Eisner for the art on this, he didn't win it on his own. He tied with someone else. So there was someone else who was considered to be doing as good a job on art that year on a comic book as this. So I've scrolled that away for one side for possibly for something for you and I at a later date to get to. But yeah, this is brilliant for me. We saw earlier. I mean, it didn't make my top 5 ever, and but do I think it would make my top 100? Yes. Do I think it's fantastic? Yes. Sometimes I think the idea of something making the top 100 seems insulting, but I go back to there have been 70 years of published comics. There's a lot of it out there, so making a top 100 is actually really good, and I actually think it would probably be somewhere in my top 20. But yeah, I cannot recommend this highly enough to anyone who wants to tiptoe into comic books, but is a little bit afraid that they're for kids and kids only, and they don't want to read something that's for kids and kids only. This isn't for kids, This I couldn't imagine giving. I couldn't imagine you giving this to Will and expecting him to not understand it, but to kind of fall in love with it like we did with stuff as a kid. If that makes sense.
So that being said, last weekend when Will was here, he did read it because he knows of Hawkeye and
Yeah.
he'd watched a bit of the TV series. He's been watching it, and he read it and went, "It's better than the TV show."
Oh, I love that boy. I tell you what, your lad's a good one, isn't he? But yeah,
But it's the thing. It's like you can give it to kids. It's not, one of those.
oh
It's
yeah,
like when
yeah.
we're
I don't
saying
want
it's
anyone
not.
to think it's too mature for kids, and I don't think there's anything in there that crosses any lines or anything. But yeah, I feel like this is one I would hand to a grown up because I think it tells grown ups that comics can be for grown ups more than
Yeah,
anything.
it's more aimed at an older audience because of what they're trying to say. They said there's going to be a bits that Will would have read and not got.
Yeah. Well, he
And
doesn't get the haggard, downtrodden thing that we've had to go through. Like, he's still positive about the world and thinks this is going to be a good place, whereas he hasn't had like 15 plus years of the grind of working to destroy his soul at this point. So he won't pick
Exactly.
up on that side of it. But yeah, do we want to jump into kind of comparisons to the TV show?
So before we do into that, obviously we're sort of going, would we or should we sort of suggest people go and get it? I think for a tenner, whilst this Panini edition is about,
yeah,
I think it's a good place to go. And weren't you saying on Comixology in the group chat that aren't they
Amazon,
like pittance?
yeah, Amazon at the moment, and Amazon own Comixology, but also they do stuff like directly for your Kindle, and I believe it was the 6 issues that we read on there, 79p. It was. Bearing in mind when this releases, it might not still be, but I think because it's the first part of a run as well, and because it's on telly, I think pounds. But I think even if not, I think you're looking at probably £3.49 to read it digitally if that's the way you want to choose. But yeah, so I think it is a bargain. Now, as I say, you get the first 6 issues, and this is a series, and the series is longer than this, and there are. As I have sealed in my house, there are lovely deluxe versions of it in hardcover, but there are probably paperback ones and the whole thing that are reasonably priced as well. One of the reasons why I really wanted this in hardcover is because of, go back to the art again, the art is so nice. Like looking at that on a lovely, crisp, very, very expensive piece of paper really helps it, even though you could argue that at large parts it's scratchy and gappy and things like that, but no, it stands out. But yeah, there are cheap and there are reasonable price ways to get this and easy ways to get it, because we say you can buy it in WH Smith's now, you can get it online, so you can get it straight to your iPad. So yeah, please people, buy this.
And that's the thing, it's one of those with when stuff is going to be on telly and the film's coming out, I can imagine if you are savvy, there are deals to be got. Because this was the reason I knew about this one being like the reissue was randomly it came up on Facebook on like the Disney Plus Facebook page of UK fans Hawkeye Volume 1 to 6 new edition tenner, and I was like, do you know what? I'll jump at a tenner.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing. It was like I'd looked at the Hawkeye stuff before, and it was like 15, 20 quid, and I was just like, I don't know, because at that point I'd only really known him from a little bit from Avengers stuff that I'd read and the films, and I was like, I'm not sure I really want to jump in on it.
No, and I think other than like an arresting, attractive cover, which I think it does have, if you'd only known him from the films, I don't think it's something where you would go, oh yeah, fuck me, I can't wait to read a Hawkeye series. Yeah. Because in the movies, he is oft that like in the background, isn't he? Like he is kind of that guy that is there, isn't he?
He's the B. He's NWO B.
Yeah, does his stuff well enough and has his moments here and there, but he's not Cap, he's not Thor, he's not Iron Man, he's not kind of in that echelon in the movies, but I think this shows you, and again, it's similar in the comic books, he's not in that echelon, and that's a driver for a lot of the stories for him. But this shows you that you don't have to be that person, and actually you can be more interesting and more compelling by being the lesser hero, for want of a better term. 22 issues of it in total. the series runs to. So there's a lot to come, mate, and I would say there's some really good stuff to come as well. And it will probably be a way down the line because like we're building up a lot of stuff that we want to do, and obviously things also cost money and take time. But I think this will be something that we will revisit and probably do sort of volume 2. And I think if you're vibing with volume 2 as much as you did with volume 1, then obviously we can look to go from there. But yeah, I think we'll come back at a later date for more Hawkeye in the coming run.
So the TV show. If you've watched The Renaissance Men, you will have known my take on it when we reviewed the first 2 episodes. Oh no, it was the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, it was the first 3. Yeah.
And it was not really sitting with me. So much so, I've only actually watched the first 4 episodes. I haven't finished it yet. But the only reason I've gone back to finish watching it is because I like the book so much. I was like, let's see if they do actually do anything else from there.
When this episode releases, the whole season will have been out, and people will have been able to see the whole kit and caboodle. And at this point, we're actually clearly we're recording this between Christmas and New Year. I've got a Christmas card on. We spoke earlier about consuming lots of food, but let's just say I have only seen up to episode 4 as well. That might give you a hint that this might have been recorded at a different time. But yeah, it is hard, isn't it? Because I think when we talked about it on the Renaissance Men, there was a bit of an enjoyment divide, and even you and I, we weren't on the same page with it, were we? Because I actually quite liked the first 2 episodes of it. I hated episode 3, and I wasn't mad keen on episode 4, and I've got a horrible feeling I'm not going to like 5 and 6 either. But some of the discussion point was around, well, you've got the context of the comic book, and you're comparing it to the comic book, and we've said this before. Sometimes it is very hard. When we talked in the last episode about the Killing Joke, we watched the Killing Joke animated movie because we loved the Killing Joke comic, and we were actually doing it to directly compare. I didn't really go into this show with the idea that I was going to get to directly compare. I didn't think we'd get the Tracksuit Mafia. I didn't think we'd get Lucky the Pizza Dog. The advert said to me we were going to get a really trashy Christmassy Home Alone bollocky thing, which, you know, if that's your bag, that's your bag. But I didn't want that. And I think one of the reasons why I didn't want that is because I've read some Hawkeye stories, this being one of them, where I go, he can be a really interesting character, and so much more than just the fire a trick arrow hero that he can be. However, where the comparison is unfair is he isn't the Hawkeye in the comics. So all that we said about that issue 3 and how great that is, and him living in the TV show, they do kind of live in an apartment building, don't they? But it's Kate's apartment. So they clearly are trying to lean into some of that stuff. They know that this stuff was good and well done. But the universe you find yourself in isn't conducive to telling the story that we are reading here. So if you put that to one side, they can't tell that story. I wanted to kind of have a look and go, well, what have they done with the elements they've taken from this? And do you know what? I do think they've done a really good job with the Tracksuit Mafia. I do think they're funny in the TV show, but funny in the way they are in the comic. They're not so well-rounded or I guess so influential, but I like having them there. And I like Lucky the Pizza Dog. I do. I think that they're the 2 things that really carried me through those first couple of episodes, because I was just like, wow, I didn't think I'd ever see these characters that I loved in this comic that isn't Avengers #1 that sold 3 million, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd ever see these on my screen, and you've done it, and you've done them well. However, I think a lot of the trappings that are in and around that don't work for me. And what I'm now finding is the things I've liked. The things I've liked the most in Hawkeye are things that are taken from this. But even some of those are starting to feel a bit cheapened now because they cannot do the interesting things they did with it in this because they are limited by where they are in the world or in the cinematic universe, and it's hard to watch.
Yes, I say it's that problem of if your source material isn't in line with the other
Yeah,
source material, you have to make changes. And I get that, but it's too much of a change of the main character because you said
yeah,
our Hawkeye here in
yeah,
this is single, horny, and a
yeah,
fuck up.
yeah,
The Hawkeye in the TV show is a family man who loves his family, who is just desperate to go home, but has a
yeah.
devout sense of loyalty to not leave people in a shit position.
Well, and the thing that I guess is his peril, rather than being bad at being a human at this point,
Yeah,
his peril is that he's taken a bit of a kicking along the way. So he's got the problem with his hearing at the moment, which is impacting his ability to, let's say, do his job as a hero. Whereas in the Hawkeye comic we're reading, the thing that's impacting him, his ability to be a hero, is his ability to be a hero. Like it didn't take kind of a physical manifestation such as to kind of put him in that boat. And yeah, like this. Uh, and again, the first three episodes I'll particularly focus on. This frames it in the he his sacrifices. He has to wants to get home to his family for Christmas,
yeah.
but because he did some bad things as Ronin, and Kate Bishop kind of fumbles and bumbles into being to finding the Ronin suit. He now feels kind of compelled to make sure that she doesn't come into strife. So it's that balance between the I want to save the innocent, but I don't want to let down my family. And
So
it's a
is it to
it,
me? Have they 180 the two of them?
sorry,
Have they 180 the two of them and made
yeah,
what we've had as Hawkeye more what Kate is in the show,
yeah, I think so, yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah,
parentiness of what Kate is to Hawkeye,
yeah.
which makes her an
Well,
interesting character and compelling.
when and that kind of framework, like the I need to get back to my family, but I've got this really important thing I need to do. I mean, we've seen millions probably at this point stories told like that, and not all of them are bad. Some of them
Uh,
are really good, but
every
it,
film
it,
on Christmas 24.
it feels like a very cheap storytelling technique, and I think you have to make something amazing to get that to stick. And I see the efforts that they've gone to here, and I go back to Smart. Of all the comic books that Hawkeye's ever been in, actually, I'd argue that the people who made this were actually smart to go to this one, because this probably is, without having read every Hawkeye comic ever, this is probably the best Hawkeye comic run ever. So
Yeah,
to borrow from this, you kind of go, okay, that is at least to a degree smart to go to the best source material. However, um, then to kind of put it around such a cheesy story,
yeah.
it lessens it for me. And like we said, the Hawkeye in this universe is different to the Hawkeye in the comics, and clearly the Kate Bishop we're getting in this is different to the Kate Bishop in the comics. Um, that's a shame for me. And you're right, it's a 180 like here very much, where Clint is the father figure to Kate, and is trying to kind of bring her along, and she's kind of the comedy, sometimes competent but fuck stuff up,
Yeah.
bumbles along a little bit and stuff like that. And outside of the comparison to the comic, I mean, that's one of my biggest problems with the show is I find the Kate Bishop character um, either unlikable, or I find it very hard to like, because she has been made into what I'm now scarily seeing, the more that is released, is the absolute archetype of Marvel cinematic or TV universe characters. They can't seem to get away from making their heroes the comedy. I've always got a witty one-liner. And don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, I live in a world, and there's lots of people I know who are very funny and say some very funny things. I also live in a world where lots of people I know don't say funny things and things like that. And I think we are a little bit too focused in the. I mean, I think I said on the Renaissance Men, or possibly in one of our chats, is she's young female Star Lord with a bow and arrow. and I didn't want young female Star-Lord with bow and arrow. I wanted, I don't know what I wanted. I probably wanted the comic book version, but I think what I wanted was for her to be more interested than that.
Yeah, it's very one note.
Yeah, yeah, and I worry about kind of the one-notedness of it. Of the last few Marvel projects, I've struggled through a bit, but I think that has been my primary struggle of going. I'm not seeing the new and the interesting. I'm not seeing. We said earlier about borrowing from this comic book. So Marvel Cinematic Universe borrows from all eras of comic books, and somehow, probably because of Kevin Feige, could give that man a raise. He managed to knit together a lot of disparate stories into a cohesive universe.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes with things like this, I think it's just like, well, borrow that bit from over there, borrow that bit from over there, and it doesn't necessarily make for a very cohesive thing. And fuck off setting it at Christmas just because you're releasing it at Christmas. You know, we saw in the comic books, we have that episode where they have the Christmas moment. And again, I'm sure that's what went through their head, but that was a Christmas moment in an issue. That wasn't a look at our story. It's all about this person trying to get home for Christmas. And it's just pish for me. Like, but I did love episode 1 and 2. So I am very much on the fence with it. But I feel like I'm on the fence and I'm going to fall off very, very quickly.
Come and join us on my side of the fence where it's fucking dull.
It's got less interesting for me. And I mean, you've seen episode 4, haven't you?
Yes, where Black Widow's sister turns up. And I'm just like, the only reason that's there is because they need to tie into the film.
Well, but do you know what? Like, and this is the sad thing for me for this as a TV show is that they did that bit at the end. It was a post-credit scenes for spoilers. Post-credit scenes for the Black Widow movie, and she is approached, and it's pretty much: do you want to get the guy who is responsible for Natasha's death? Now, bearing in mind she's a highly trained assassin. Okay, in that movie they show her as having some quirkiness and personality, not quite so Star-Lord, but a bit of that with it. And you go, oh, do you know what? That'll be interesting if the Hawkeye TV show is about the new Black Widow going to fuck him up. But we don't get that. We get 3 episodes of or 3.5 episodes of twee Christmas story, but with some of the good stuff borrowed from this. Just to have that WWE-esque cheap pop moment where she just appears. Doesn't kick the fuck out of everyone like she should do. The only one who should actually be able to do anything against her is Hawkeye, because presumably in this universe we say he has been trained as a kind of super assassin guy. And then takes the mask off, a little bit of japesy, and I haven't seen 5 or 6 yet, but I'm pretty sure they'll all be fucking mates by the end of it. And I go, oh, what a shame, because you could have done something really good here. You could have brought her in and actually had her on a Korean-esque vengeful mission, and that could have been really fucking compelling. And you want Hawkeye down and out in this building. You want him to be away from his family. That's why he's away from his family, because this lass knows he's got a family, so they have to go into hiding. And then you see him, the peril of him having to kind of live without his. And then you bring in a Kate Bishop to be his company during this and stuff like that, and you don't turn her into a twee wise cracking twat. But yeah, just full of missed opportunity, and they had the nuggets there, and that's the bit I don't like. They laid the nuggets out, but they haven't followed through on it. But in a couple of weeks' time, when I've watched 5 and 6 and they're fucking brilliant, and I'm decrying this as the greatest show of ever, although I think people who have watched this and watched Renaissance Men know that I certainly at least try to give a balanced of, if something has 3 good episodes and 3 bad episodes, at best it can be average, because it's had 3 bad episodes. So it doesn't matter how good the fucking end is or the post credits are. If half of it's bad, then it can't be considered really good, can it?
No. Yeah.
It's
one of those. Not been a fan of it so far. It's just. I think it's too tropey. It's very much too tropey of
Yeah.
everything we're getting with Marvel under Disney, and
Yeah.
you know, the only one that hasn't been like that was WandaVision, because
Yeah.
even Loki was tropey, but Loki's a character that I love and
Yeah.
had enough comedy in it that kept me interested, but it
And
was
again,
very tropey, and this is falling into that, as did Winter Soldier, and Falcon fell into it as well.
the thing is, I do understand it because obviously they are. I mean, Disney didn't get where they are just by drawing a really catchy mouse once. You know, like, they do sort of tap into that sort of zeitgeist mentality. I think for me, like WandaVision, as we know, I love. And you know, going back to the movies, like I love what they did with Guardians. So I don't want it to be misconstrued that I don't like Star Lord when I criticise everyone as being it's just another Star Lord. But I think that's Star Lord was really good.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they did a really good job of giving us this kind of japes that like really doesn't take the world seriously, even though he's in, like out there in the universe doing these crazy things. And I think there have been some real tentpole moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where you've gone, they've tried to do, they're staying within a degree of the formula, but they're also trying to tell some different styles of Shang-Chi. Like, I think bringing in that martial arts element, and not just because I want to see people do kung fu, but I think there was enough, you know, like martial arts and Eastern philosophy in there that you go, yes, you're trying to do something interesting in there. But
Ragnarok was another one where it was just
again bringing in
fun.
interesting creators, though, isn't it? You know, you
Yeah.
bring in interesting creators with an interesting idea, and you say, okay, there's but during this story, you have to get us from point A to point B. But how you get there is up to you. But we need this and we need that. Whereas some of the stuff, it falls into that formula too much. And I think I take that. You know, comic books are a very wide and varied art for consumption. But I kind of want went back to like the art style of this and maybe the writing of it. It felt quite indie. And I think that's what I want in my superhero cinematic TV universe is maybe generic summer blockbuster action, generic summer blockbuster action with a bit more humour. Then give me my more indie, more thoughtful bit. Then you can, but then you can have another generic and stuff like that. I want a bit more of a varied product, and I feel like we've gone a bit like homogenized at the moment. And this is unfortunately another kind of homogenized version, and it's drawn in some stuff that I really like into it, which is lessened it a little bit for me. But do better, Disney.
So that will do us for this week. As always,
I'll do this for this year, Chris. We'll be coming back, and it'll be 2022.
All the twos come back to hate us. So, as always, like, subscribe, ring the bell, share, tell your buddies. We've got nothing better to be doing over this festive period. You're going to be nursing a massive hangover on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day.
If you've got any vouchers for Christmas, punt them towards getting a Hawkeye, but obviously Killing Joke as well from the last one if you haven't read that. But spend your vouchers. Do they even do vouchers anymore? I'm saying that. I presume they do e-vouchers at the very least, don't they?
Yes. But yeah, so it's one of those of we will be back in the new year. As part of the new year, we will be introducing a new segment to the show going forward. Not breaking down like we have today, but we will be having a discussion of what we are currently reading.
Yeah, bit of light touch, wouldn't it? Maybe to kind of give you guys who are watching this kind of an idea of the sort of stuff that's on our radar that we're consuming at the time, and I guess any of that stuff, if we fall in love with it, it may well become a bigger episode later down the line. But yeah, kind of keeping you up to where we are, what we're doing in the comic book world.
You know, so anything interesting that we read that we go, yeah, you should try this, or anything that we start reading and go, no, avoid like the Rona.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no idea what the first topic of 2022 will be yet, because we've not thought about it.
No, we were so keen at getting these couple of specials in that we didn't. But I mean, like I said earlier, we are we've got like a lot of ideas, and I think Other than the 8 years it's going to take us to read Nightfall Part 2, I think most of our stuff we don't need a lot of prep time for, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like we've got one of our passion projects is to read every Marvel comic ever released and then do an episode on it.
Call it on the fly. First episode of the year, another top 5.
Yeah, I think so. We quite like doing them, don't we? We find them quite fun, and we hope that people like listening do find them fun. I think I've always been a bit of a boy for lists, and I like a good top 5. So we'll start the year off with a top 5, but we'll put something out probably on the Facebook group over the period of going. This is what the top 5 will be, and then maybe if anyone's got any contributions for the top 5 in advance, we can chuck them into the show as well.
Yes. But as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for enjoying the show.
Thank you for being a friend. Da, 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 da. I just sung, and I'm going to put this out. I'm not even going to edit that because it is the second best theme tune ever, as covered in the top 5 theme tunes episode we did on the Renaissance Men. And if anyone doesn't know what it is, you're fucking dead inside. It's the Golden Girls.
I'm dead inside.
Oh, God, come on, man. It's beautiful. It's only surpassed by the Prisoner Cell Block H theme tune.
But as I was going to say before you started serenading us, obviously this is something that we started on a whim earlier this year. We fucking enjoy doing it.
We do.
Obviously, any feedback would be wonderful, so we can go into next year with ideas of stuff that you want to see from us, topics you want to know, lists, top 5s, anything that you want to hear, what we want to talk about, give us a shout so we can do it. Because as I said, we have a Google Doc that has got all of our random ideas on. This shit ain't going anywhere anytime soon. So yeah.
I reckon even if we win the lottery, Chris, we'll go off to a little island somewhere and we'll just carry on doing this anyway, won't we? It's just on our little island.
Yes.
The background will change. There'll be palm trees behind us, but the content will keep on coming.
No, you'd still be in a room full of pops.
Oh, yeah, there'd be a palm tree behind the pops to keep them shady so that their boxes don't melt.
Just in a nicer location.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't have to work, and then we can read more.
Yeah.
And we could do more.
It would be nice. I think that if there's anything I've learned in life is that yes, I do have to work because it pays for things like comic books and doing the stuff I enjoy. But fuck me, work enough get in the way of doing the things you like, doesn't it?
Yes. So as always, we have pop shows on a Monday, cult games on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Upcoming Fed ECW tapings.
Yes. My new baby that might be out by now, but I think that will be a New Year thing. So you're right, it will
coming
be upcoming
in the new year.
So for anyone who's watching this, who's a comic book fan but also likes wrestling, I'm gonna have an attempt at fantasy booking a wrestling company using a wrestling game. So if that floats your boat, come on down because it's been an interesting experience talking on my own again into a microphone about stuff. I try to avoid Jimmy level accents, although I will confess, I think in episode 2 there's a bit of accent work that happens, so I'm tiptoeing into that.
Obviously, we have Stu who puts out his
session
gaming. The wonderful run over Christmas, an advent of him and the little egg.
Yeah, Legoing it up
on the advent calendar. And the main event, the granddaddy of them all, the Stiffies, that you will have seen our end of year awards, and the wonderful Christmas special that we put out, and the main show, Renaissance Men, that you will get into your ears every Friday, just filling your lives with joy.
Yep. We're going to be locked down again, so you might as well watch us. That's what I'm saying.
pretty much come January, you might not be able to go outside. So
Come January, this is it, people. Like, this is what you're getting. So
come in, join us. And until next time, and the new year, goodbye.
Goodbye. Happy New Year. Thanks for watching, and just remember, you can join the Cult of Egg by liking and subscribing to this YouTube channel. We release regular content where we talk about all things geek, all things pop culture, and all things that we're interested in. You can also come along and join the discussion on Facebook groups and Renaissance Cast. And you can join us on our Twitch channel where Stu regularly streams games. And if you'd like to support us, then please follow the link for the Patreon. Thanks very much.